Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now, a couple of weeks ago I did a video on focus stacking, and we did that using DxO software and Affinity Photo, and that turned out pretty well, I thought, out of the box. So I got to thinking, and one of the things that I thought was, what would happen if we combined exposure merging with focus stacking. So let me go a little bit deeper into that. So what I mean by exposure merging is in situations where the dynamic range of the scene is larger than the sensor can comfortably cope with, we take multiple exposures and blend them in software to come out with one exposure that covers the entire dynamic range. So typically this would involve taking a dark picture, a middle picture and a light picture, and we merge those in software to get one exposure that contains the entire dynamic range. And this is a pretty good way. I use this quite often in landscape photography, and we can get very natural looking results with this. And so I started to think, what would happen if we combined the process of doing that and exposure merging? And the first thing I thought was, what fresh hell is this? Because it's complicated and it's very easy to lose your thread in this. So I'm going to take you through the process right now. And this is the process that I use, and it's absolutely nailed on, works. So first thing you do, you get onto location and you compose your frame for the entire picture, for the finished picture. So you get your frame, lock your tripod and your tripod head off so the camera cannot move. And now what we want to do is we want a set of photographs for the foreground, a set of photographs for the middle, and a set of photographs for the distance. And within each set we want a dark, a middle and a light exposure, and those will be blended. Okay, so 9 photographs in all for 3 exposures. We may consider that we want more than 3. We might want a foreground and a middle foreground, perhaps, in some circumstances, but that will make 12 photographs, and this is why we need a process. I promise you, if you don't use this process, you will get into such a muddle on site, and an even bigger muddle when you get back to the studio trying to sort out the pictures. So we're going to go with that process. So set the frame, set the focus, do your near shots, dark, middle, light. Go to the middle, dark, middle, light again. Go to the distance, dark, middle, light. And we bring all of those pictures back to the studio, and that's what we're going to look at now. Okay, here we are in Affinity Photo, and what we're going to do is to do a new focus merge. And I just want to show you a little trick here that I use. When I'm out in the field, when I'm doing focus merges or HDR, you're dealing with sets of pictures, and importing them, you're looking at thumbnails, and it's very difficult to tell at a glance which set of pictures is which. So what I do is I take a snap of my hand immediately before the first set, and at the end of the first set, another snap of my hand. So you can see in this set of pictures, I've got multiple sets of 3 or 4 pictures between shots of hands, so it's very easy for me to work out in this thumbnail view what pictures I'm going to import into Affinity or into Lightroom or any other package. Okay, so let's get on with the PureRAW piece. So I'm going to cancel out of this temporarily and invoke PureRAW. Okay, now I've pre-selected these just to save a little bit of time, but these are the 3 sets that I've got. So 9 pictures. You've got one representing close focus. You've got one representing mid-focus and one representing distant focus. And I just want to clean up and sharpen a little these raw files. Go into Process of Preview, and this allows me to check what I'm doing. So I want to go with Deep Prime XD2. Keep these as is. We want to turn lens softness on with hard. We want to correct vignetting, correct chromatic aberration. I'm not going to correct lens distortion. We can do that later on if we want to. But in this one, because we're using 16mm lens, we're actually being constructive with the lens distortion. We're using that lens distortion to help us compose the shot. So redefining it's not going to be particularly fruitful. Okay, so let's go with these. Process now. Okay, and don't be alarmed, it's not really 30 minutes, it's just going to whiz through these quite fast. Okay, processing is done. Go to Finder, and here they are on the DxO folder. So there's my first set, second set, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're now going to merge the first set of images. So a new HDR merge. Now, I take noise reduction off because we've already done that. We don't want to do that twice. So add from here. That's my first set. So 3, 4, and 5. Open. Noise reduction off. Okay, this should just now run through. And I think this is the middle set, looking at it, so the background doesn't look too much in focus and neither does the foreground, so this is most likely the middle. But we'll check in a second. Tone mapping going through. Okay, so let's just check that this one is so very sharp all the way through to the back, not so sharp at the front. So I would suspect this is probably the middle shot. Okay, so let's export this. There you go. So we'll apply the processing. All right. We go to the export persona. Change this to 16-bit TIFF. So we're not going to muck around with that at all. And I'm going into my DxO directory and I'm going to call it export 1. Call it middle. This could possibly be the background one. Let's see if we get a better one. Okay, so that's done. And new HDR merge. We're going through exactly the same process here. So take noise reduction off, remove ghosts is on, add is here, and we take our second set. So 1, 2, 3. Open these up. check that, noise reduction is off. Okay, and off we go. Exactly the same process. Alright, so we'll keep this, we'll just keep the natural one. So we'll apply that. Export persona. Set it to TIFF again. 16-bit RGB. In the DxO folder, and let's just check and see which one this is. Check to see which one this is first of all. So that middle looks distinctly out of focus, but I think we're going to find this foreground is very sharp indeed. Okay, so this is definitely foreground. Alright, so let's export it into the DxO, call it foreground. And export. Okay, now one thing I'd like to point out here is that as sharp as this is on the foreground, this stone is very, very close to the lens, less than a meter away. And the stone is quite a long way raised off the ground, so these detail here on the branches are some way in front of what is the background of this, what we're looking at now, so these are some way off the ground. As a result, in this foreground view, the ground is ever so slightly soft. I'm not going to worry too much about that because it's not a major part of the picture. The function of the rock is simply to anchor the picture. So let's go and open our third set. So new HDR merge, add, and our last set should be this one. Okay, we've got one middle foreground. Yep, and there we go. Take off noise reduction, put on remove ghosts, and do OK. Same drill for each set. So what we're going to end up with here is 3 pictures, which are the merged extended dynamic range shot. So all we're doing here, we're going for the natural look. We're not in any way extending the dynamic range of the photograph. We're bringing the dynamic range in line with the limitations of the sensor. So the sensor can only capture so much in these circumstances. And what we're doing is we're providing it the extra information. So again, go with natural, go with apply, go to export. Okay, and the first thing we do is remember to convert this. So we're going for TIFF 16-bit to get the highest quality. Call that middle. Okay, and off it goes. And we close. Choose don't save, because we've already exported it. So what we're doing now is a new focus merge. Go with the add, open them all up, and distant. There you go, they'll look like reasonably well matched exposures. And we simply process these. It's going to merge the sources. And there's my focus merged image. So very, very sharp on the rock. Move through the picture, sharp, sharp, and sharp all the way to the back of the picture. Perfect. Now, the one thing that I will say about this, and this is really user error as much as it is software error, is this rock was very close to the lens, and in putting the focus directly on the rock, it's left the area down here a little bit soft, and so the software hasn't been able to accurately determine which we should be using, and the result of that is a little bit of ghosting on that area. It's not important. I mean, it is important in the sense of we want sharpness front to back. In the aesthetic sense of this picture, it's not so important because that certainly is not where we're going to be drawing the viewer's eye to. But it's something to watch out for, I think. And this is quite interesting because I've done the same merge in Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop, and the same area causes confusion, but we get a different aberration. What it does in Lightroom Photoshop is it literally changes the tone of this entire area, which was the mistake that we ran into in the previous video and corrected, and it doesn't do a good job of this. This is a mistake, but it's less obtrusive, I think. Now, I suspect that the real answer to this is to take one extra shot in the focus stack. So I'd focus here, I'd focus on the actual ground down there to get that really sharp. Then foot of the trees and windmills. What I actually did was focus stone, foot of the trees, windmills. So I've left a little zone of uncertainty right at the front of the picture. My fault, user error, I suspect. I'm not going to correct that within the confines of this video, and I'm certainly not going to do it next week because I think we've pretty exhaustively examined this topic. But I'm pleased with the results, and this is straight out of the box processing. There is nothing fancy going on at all here. And so given that little area of uncertainty, I think we've got a pretty good result. Okay, back to the studio. Okay, so that was the results we got from a very basic process. What I did was I pre-processed for each of the 9 photographs in DxO PureRAW. And the intention in doing that was simply to tidy up the RAW file, to make it a little bit sharper, have that clarity that gives Affinity Photo something to get its teeth into. I'm aware that with the dark photographs, a lot of those photos were quite dark, so the intent in using PureRAW is simply to clean up those RAW files and give Affinity Photo more to work with. Okay, we then fed the photos through to an Affinity Photo HDR merge, and we came out of that process with 3 merged photographs, which we then fed back into Affinity Photo and did a focus merge. And we came out with something that was incredibly detailed, so we can go from the foreground through to the background of the picture. And the one area that I found fault with was to the right-hand side of the rock. And the reason that there was a problem there is because there were plants growing across that at the level of the rock, which was about 5 feet off the ground. So when we were focused to an object that was very, very close, we got soft focus on the ground that was immediately beneath it, and that was a user problem. That was my problem as a photographer. I should have thought that through a little bit better, and in those circumstances I would have ended up with 4 bracketed shots. I would have done the rock, I would have done the foreground close to the rock, and then I would have done my middle and my background. So that's the only difference that I would make. So I think the results we got out of Affinity Photo were good. What I would normally do now is take that back into the Nik Collection, and I would warm the colours up slightly. I would make more of the sunshine that was coming in from the right-hand side of the frame, lighting up those hills, and just give it a little bit more of an evening glow, a little bit more contrast. But that's really the subject of another video. Okay, so thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope this has been understandable. As ever, if you've got any questions about this, post them down below, and give us a like if you liked the video, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. That would be absolutely excellent. All right, thanks, and see you next week. Bye.